Have you ever wondered where your ancestors were from? We showed you in our Denmark video about how I researched my Danish relatives and then went to actually see their farms in Denmark. In this video, I'm going to show you how I did that with my Alsatian relatives, how we traveled to their villages, and give you tips on making your own ancestry search and trip.
We are Next Act Retirement and Travel. I'm Bob.
And I'm Sarah.
We are part-time retirees traveling part-time to experience as much of the world as we can. Today, we are going to take you back in time on a family history search and then travel to Alsace to see the village where Sarah's ancestors came from. Sarah, how did you get started?
This story starts like my Danish journey, in that I knew my great-great-grandparents were from Alsace, but I had no idea where they were from. And when I tried to poke around at this issue before, just really got nowhere. This time, I got somewhere.
Where is Alsace?
Let's look at that. It is currently a part of France. It lies on the east edge of France and shares a border with Germany. My red triangle indicating the area of Alsace is not super precise, but is intended to give you an idea of where the Alsace region is located. At various times in history, Alsace has been under German control and then back under French control.
Sarah, how did you find out your first information?
Well, I started by learning as much as I could about my great-great-grandparents. One of the first things I do when I start to research an ancestor is try to follow them and learn as much about them as I can through the U.S. censuses and the state censuses. This is one area where the fluidity of Alsace really showed up. In the 1880 census, my great-grandparents said they were from or were born in Alsace. In 1900, it said Germany. In 1910, it said France. I tried to match that with what was happening in Alsace, but really couldn't get an exact match, so I'm not sure what they were doing, if they were trying to follow what was happening in Europe or just had other reasons for picking which side of the border they thought they belonged on.
So, Sarah, why did you start with the census?
Following your ancestors in the censuses really gives you an idea of whether they stayed in one place or did they move around a lot. It can also show you whether the family was growing, were they having more kids, whether their kids were getting married off, or whether on the other side there was a death or maybe a separation or divorce in the family. It kind of gives you a big picture of what's happening with a family over time.
It seems like, Sarah, you could find out some very important information from obituaries. Did you find any of your family's obituaries?
Yes, I found some obituaries and biographies online. One source I almost always check out when I'm looking for Iowa ancestors is to go to the Iowa GenWeb page. You can drill down to specific counties. From there, you can get to a county page. I will make a couple of points here, though, on using this website. First, each county's page is run by volunteers from the county, so each county's page can look a little bit different from other counties based on the information that's available in the area. Second, this is not just for Iowa. There is a page for every state. I'm going to point you to the U.S. GenWeb link or site. From US GenWeb, you can get down to a state GenWeb site, and from there you can drill down to the county level. Third, this source can be useful if your ancestors stayed in one place for all of their lives, and maybe if they got to that place in the late 1800s or the early 1900s, because there's just more information available on that time period. After that educational moment, let's get back to the ancestor hunt.
That's the most exciting part, Sarah.
Yeah, let's get back to it. On this website, I found obituaries for both of my great-grandparents. Well, my great-great-grandfather's obituary just said in general that he was from Alsace, Lorraine. My great-great-grandmother's obituary was more specific. It said she was from Bas-Rhin in Alsace, and her maiden name was Schenk.
This seems much easier, Sarah, than the search for your Danish ancestors, was it?
Oh yes, it was a lot easier. In the Denmark search, I had a lot of misses in the obituary in that they didn't say much more than the ancestor was born in Denmark. So it was very refreshing in this search that I found a specific town right away, and so now I just had to verify it.
Did you use any other resources in gathering your early information?
Yes, one thing that I almost always use and was very helpful in this case was looking for some newspaper archives. So many of our nation's newspapers are now archived, and I like to find them in public library websites. So lots of times I'll try to find out what is the county seat for a certain county and then look for the public library in that county seat town and then see whether they have any newspaper archives available online for free at their library website. Now, I have to say, too, that you can also get a newspaper.com subscription, and they have a lot of newspapers across the nation available on newspapers.com, but I sort of like to go county by county if I can with some free newspaper researches. At that time, I could access a free public library newspaper archive for the locality I was researching and was able to locate newspaper items about them. You know, back in those days in the smaller towns, they would have little newspaper clippings or articles about who visited whom during the week. And so that's really interesting to get that little glimpse into your ancestors' daily life. I'm going to put up two little tidbits here of newspaper articles to give you an example of that information that you can find. And these short tidbits say that my grandfather is selling all his farm equipment and livestock and is moving to live with his two sons. So right there you have an interesting piece of information about when he quit farming and where he went after he quit farming.
Did you do anything with the information you found that your great-great-grandmother was born in Bas-Rhin?
Certainly. I didn't stop just with that U.S. information. I had to dig further, and that's when we get to the really exciting stuff. I didn't find anything really on point on Ancestry.com at that time, and maybe now they've added more stuff available on their databases. So I took a move from my Danish playbook and I tried to find a French national or regional archive for their area. So I had to find where Bas-Rhin was and what region it was in within Alsace. I determined that Bas-Rhin was in the Bas-Rhin area of Alsace. Alsace is divided into two regions, Upper Alsace, which is called Haut-Rhin in French, and Lower Alsace, which is called Bas-Rhin in France. And I found a wonderful online digital archive for Bas-Rhin.
How did you use the archive?
Let's show you a few screenshots to give you an idea of how to use the archives. First, the website will be in French, and you will probably want to ask your browser to translate the page in English. Although I do know some French, I wasn't really interested in trying to figure out a whole website in French. Next, you can drill down to find the parish registers. You will come to an electronic bookshelf of parish registers. You will notice that there are 4 registers for each year, N is for birth, which is naissance in French. PM is for marriage publications. M is for marriage. And D is for deaths. Of course, these are all words in French. It just happens that PM, M, and D just seem like English words because the English and French words start with the same letter.
Is this where you found your great-great-grandmother's birth record?
Yes, the obituary recounted that she was born in 1841 in Drachenbronn. Looking through the parish registers, I found the register for Drachenbronn for 1841, and I found the record of her birth. Naturally, all the records are in French at this time. You should be able to use a computer translator to help you with the form or pre-printed words and also with the filled in or handwritten words. The birth record shows that she was born on August 15th of 1841. Her father was Pierre Schenk, who was 30 years old, and her mother was Madeline Mauer, who was also 30 years old. So now I'm able to go back one more generation because the family was in Drachenbronn for the previous generation, and I was able to build out the family tree even more with other births, marriage, and death records. What is interesting to note is that most all of these relatives had French sounding or spelled first names and German last names. I'm going to show you just one more record. I'm not going to take you down the whole rabbit hole, but this record is really interesting. It is the marriage record for my great-great-grandparents. It is just packed full of information to follow up on. I have translated the more important parts and we'll go through those. This is the marriage record for Henri or Henry Gunther and Madeline Schenk. Here the record is using the German spelling of the last name with two dots known as an umlaut above the U. I have anglicized the spelling to a UE, which is how they show it in English. This record was made in Drachenbronn. The marriage was on May 1st of 1863. The first underline is the groom, Henri Gunther. He is unmarried, or maybe we should say never married before, and a farmer from Alsace. He was born on March 1st, 1837. His father was also named Henri Gunther. His father was a 58-year-old farmer. Henry's mother was Elizabeth Walther, who died in 1855. The bride is the second underlined name. She was 22 years old and had never been married. She was born August 15th of 1841. Her father is Pierre Schenk, who is a 52-year-old farmer, and her mother was Madeline Mauer, who died in 1854. You can see that this record is just a treasure trove of information to keep tracing through these parish registers, and that is what I did. I just kept following the birth, marriage, and death records and expanding my family tree until I ran out of records. And as you're looking through those birth records, you can also just happen upon other siblings in the family, or on this website, there are also census records that you can page through, find the family as a whole group and where they're living in the year of the census. Like I said, I just kept building out the tree until I ran out of records. It is really so exciting when you find this information because you feel then like you are connected to the people and that they were living beings with full lives and not just names in a family tree in your baby book. Let's just take a little historical side note here because this is just so very interesting and you may never have heard about this situation. I have taken a screenshot of a section of the parish records before 1807. you see that instead of 1806 and 1805, you have Roman numerals for 14 and 13. These are Napoleonic era records that used a different calendar. These records correspond to the French Republican calendar. It was a calendar created and implemented during the French Revolution and used from late 1793 to about 1805. The calendar consisted of 12 30-day months, each divided into 3 10-day cycles similar to weeks, plus 5 or 6 extra days at the end of the year to fill out the balance of the solar year.
Now, Sarah, that really does make my head hurt. I don't think I'm smart enough to have figured out this new calendar system.
And you wonder how people of all educational and different work levels, how did they grasp moving from a 7-day week to basically a 10-day week? And you'll find out here, I'm going to say that they all had different names of months and days. Crazy. It was designed to remove all religious and royalist influences of the calendar. It was part of a larger attempt to remove the Christian influences from the calendar as well, and to also promote the decimal system, hence all these 10-day weeks. The calendar gave new names to the days and to those new months. I can't imagine how confusing this was. If you need to convert a date from the French Republican calendar to a Gregorian calendar date, there are converters online or charts online that you can find that out. I just had to take a break to talk about that because it's something that we probably never consider, that some country or time or place uses a different calendar. After doing all of that research, we were ready to make the trip to the villages of Bas-Rhin and Obituaries. We actually combined this with the trip to Denmark. From Copenhagen, we flew to Stuttgart, Germany, to visit our foreign exchange daughter and her family. They had agreed to make a driving trip with us to the villages. We did a 2-day trip with an overnight in Hagenau, which is just a little south of Bas-Rhin.
Bas-Rhin is located just a little over 2 hours from Stuttgart, so it was a pretty easy drive going over and coming back. Let's first take you to the villages, then we'll tell you more about some of the other things that we did. When we first got to Bas-Rhin, we looked for a cemetery that may have held some of Sarah's ancestors. Unfortunately, we could not find any of their names. As we learned from our Denmark adventure, the deceased do not stay in one place forever. After 10 to 20 years, the burial plot is reused. It was interesting, though, that an older gentleman stopped by and was very gracious and offered to help find the cemeteries for us.
We also went to the city offices in Bas-Rhin. The clerk there was very helpful in showing us the old records, the actual old records. They were the same as I found on the archives, but here I was able to touch them and page through them, and it's just amazing that after more than 100 years that the city offices still had those birth, marriage, and death records in them, and we really appreciated that the city clerk took the time to help us find those and allowed us to look at them.
After all of this hard ancestry research, Bob at least was hungry, and we needed to find a place to eat lunch. So we found a nice little restaurant, and we ate lunch there, and our German host found it quite amusing with the odd mix of both German and French used by the people in that area.
We visited a few other interesting stops along the way, such as the wine festival in Stuttgart, a beer festival in Stuttgart, of Wissenberg, Castle ruin in France called Fleckenstein, and Hellbrunn Monastery in Germany. We also enjoyed eating a lot of good food on this trip, especially Alsatian food. A highlight, though, was eating escargot.
We hope that you've enjoyed this journey through time and place. If you have done any ancestry travel, we would love to hear that in the comments below. Please let us know where you've been and how that search turned out for you. If you haven't been on an ancestry search and journey, maybe this video will inspire you to go in search of your own ancestors.
On this channel, Next Act Retirement and Travel, we do a variety of land-based adventures and sightseeing. Because we show a variety of travel on this channel, we like to group them in different playlists. You'll find this video in the Ancestry Travel playlist, and it will join our video on our Denmark Ancestry trip. If you've enjoyed this video, we would love for you to give us a like and subscribe so you won't miss out on any of our new videos.
If you would like to see some of our cruise travel, we highly recommend that you go over to our cruise channel, Next Act Cruising. Thank you so much for joining us today on this adventure. And until next time, we say goodbye.